expecting a
That's
response?
a political statement.
Okay.
I don't think really much chance.
Okay, my second question.
I'll just make it a question, Councillor Crisp.
All right, normally when you have independent legal advice, and this has come to us in the 11th hour, some people haven't even got it in written form, you would have the opportunity on something as important as this to have those lawyers present that you could have it discussed. Was that considered for today, that we could have that information?
Look, they are certainly here if you want to question them. Unfortunately, because everyone else is here, they didn't want to take up any space. So, hey, come on. Let's keep our humour. So, if you want to actually specifically hear from them, I'll be delighted to call them in.
Yes.
But why don't we just get through the questions that have been asked at this point in time, and then go to that. Is that all right? Okay, Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. Sometimes it seems to me that this process has been hurried, because I do recall back in 2013 when the planners and some councillors felt that the plan at that stage was absolutely perfect because they wanted to make it operative on notification. So they thought at that stage the plan was perfect. Now we're being told, well, you know, the plan wasn't perfect. But notwithstanding that, we heard from the Mayor that this process has to be finished on the 22nd of July, or the recommendations from the panel have to come to us on the 22nd of July. But in actual fact, we could, if we wanted, apply for an extension for up to 1 year. Is that correct?
So through you, Mr Mayor, the legislation that's been set up to guide this process enables an extension of 1 year if both the panel and the council agree to take that to the Minister for the Environment, and it's the Minister for the Environment's decision whether or not they will grant an extension up to 1 year.
Right. So it's not exactly correct that we've only got until, or the panel has only got until the 22nd of July to make their recommendations to them. And given the huge anxiety in the community about this and the poor process that the people are concerned about, what would be the outcome, apart from it being delayed for a year, if we were to do that, apply for that?
So I think there's a number of implications if we could convince the panel to partner with us and ask the Minister to extend the period. One is that, as we've discussed many times over the last 5 years, there are legacy plans that have not been reviewed for well over 15 years now. They represent rules that have been consistently raised by the community as not delivering the kind of quality urban outcome that Auckland wants to achieve. And it's not uncommon that you will see in the paper examples of existing legacy plan outcomes being used to describe the unitary plan. So the fact that if we cannot move this plan through the timetable originally intended, we will have legacy plans that exist that are continue to deliver outcomes that communities do not accept. We will also be in a situation where the provision of additional housing to house a growing population is constrained, and that is an issue, whatever type of housing it is. Our population is growing. Thirdly, we will have a panel that is funded by the council up until their 1 year, the time frame, which finishes in about September, and so that would then mean added commitment from ratepayers' funds to actually continue the maintenance of that panel, because even though it's an independent hearings panel, central government required us to pay for the operation of that panel. They have already committed over 2.5 years of their working lives to this. We do not know whether they're prepared to keep on in that role. And so that will be something that would have to be discussed with them. But the big issue is that some of the problems that people consistently raise with us about poor urban design, about having the wrong kind of rules to manage growth and development will continue to be the things that guide development across Auckland for another year. And we will also not be able to enable the kind of housing growth that we need to house our growing population.
Well, the housing growth will only occur if the market allows it to occur, so that's a totally irrelevant answer. So really, this should be put back to the people through the election process, and then people can determine who stands for the people and who stands for the planners of the city.
Yeah, definitely is. Right, Councillor Alf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Must be election year.
Yep,
this year.
absolutely.
Your Worship, just 3 questions. First one is, oh, she's gone. Where's Catherine? I'll save that. Oh, James is here. Look, it's around that conflict of interest and predetermination, judgment, etc. Now, does that include comments that may come through social media in regards to a predetermined opinion in regards to the outer scope?
I don't think it matters where you express your views.
Okay.
Public.
It's public. That's good then. At least there'll be copies of Facebook messages going out when we hear this. Another question around, and I just want to clarify the evidence and in regards to the outer scope being removed. So I want to ask John, and I just want some clarifications for you, Your Worship. John, you mentioned, bless you, you mentioned that if it's the outer scope is removed, that our lawyers will be present, but planners and obviously the evidence will not be heard. So will we end up, and that's the clarification, will it just be the submitters who don't want any zoning or increase in zoning, plus the Housing New Zealand submission, which obviously looks at 59.2% of increase for mixed housing urban and 26.5% across the region for THAB. I mean, we will then be redundant. Independent hearings panel will be just hearing just those 2 views. Is that the clarification I'm asking? Is that the case?
Your Worship, Mr Philippine, essentially that is the case. The submitters will be there. They have a wide range of views from those, as I mentioned before, who want more intensification and growth, and Housing New Zealand are one example of that, but there are others. And on the other hand, those that want the unitary plan to provide less growth and intensification in certain areas, and there are certainly some people who have submitted on the plan asking for the plan to provide less intensification in their particular part of Auckland. So the panel will hear all those views, but wouldn't hear the council's case other than a legal statement. And the maps, getting back to Councillor Casey's question, would essentially look like the pepper potting map that I showed before under the withdrawal of out of scope. It would be pepper potted maps in many parts of Auckland. And the panel has given clear guidance that the pepper potting approach is not something that it considers as a sensible plan.
Okay.
So, Your Worship, I've still got one more, but just...
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. John, have you read the evidence or seen the evidence from Housing New Zealand Corporation?
Unfortunately not. It's only just come in, so we're only just reviewing it now.
Will you be surprised that in the south, and I pick on the south because that's the area I represent with my 2 local boards, but will you be surprised that Housing New Zealand are asking for mixed housing urban to increase to 66.5% and THAB to 20.5% in the south?
That's possibly more than I would have anticipated, but it doesn't completely
surprise me. I look forward to your feedback on the Housing New Zealand submission. Your Worship, last question, and it's in regards to the 1-year extension. Can you please tell me, has there been any indication or indication from the Chair in regards to whether they would or he would entertain whether there's been any conversation. I just wanted to sort of ask that question.
No, we're not aware any. The timetabling of the hearings process is very much tailored around delivering their recommendations in July, but we've heard no comment from the judge on that matter.
Okay, and supplementary, Your Worship, sorry, just one more. This process we're currently in now is a statutory process, it's not ours?
Yes, so as we've said, the special legislation set this up, so central government passed that special legislation. We are following the process that was set out in that legislation, and we're following the guidance of the independent hearings panel, who were given the right to set what that process would be.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Very good. Councillor Kell.
No.
Right. Councillor Cameron.
Just since you put that example up, Mr Mayor, of Takapuna,
Yep.
I want to go to another example and question that we are making nominal changes and only reflecting the principles of the unitary plan as the ADC committee
Yep.
signed off in May last year. If that is the case, then Glendowie would have a bustling town centre called Glendowie and a train at least, but what we've actually seen is mixed housing urban with no density provisions, and with the provision now with the definition changing of 3 stories, 1 metre plus 1 full roof, out the back of Glendowie down cul-de-sacs, in and around Mount Taylor, in and around the Glendowie school, that is miles away from what was always promised and envisioned for mixed housing urban when we delineated urban from suburban. Suburban was for our family suburbs, for want of a better term, and mixed housing urban, the spirit of that, was for in and around our town centres and significant transport stations and hubs. As far as I see, going from 0 to 15% mixed housing urban, out the back of Glendowie, which is arguably closer to Browns Island than the CBD, is not in the spirit of any unitary plan principles that any of us signed off to. If there's not a question, I've got a second.
No, that's
There's
right.
not an answer.
Can you make it a question, Cameron?
Well,
Are they? Well, the question is this. I want their question. My question is this: how can they justify, when you read the principles of mixed housing urban, being 250 metres away from a FAB zone? There's no FAB within 2 k's. Being close to a bus station, I haven't seen the Glendowie bus station. Being close to rapid rail, being close to a major neighbourhood centre or town centre, it's completely out of character. And so, how can we have trust in the principles that we are merely following the principles of the unitary plan when Glendowie is potentially getting 12 metres down some of its crescents and cul-de-sacs? Which, for those who wonder what 12 metres is, they take a look at 2 very unpopular buildings in St Heliers village that have been built in the last 5 years.
Okay, so let's have a little bit of reflection on that one.
So
This is the wrong map.
we're sending.
I think they don't know, mate.
So,
I don't know where Glendowie is.
so Miss, so Mr Mayor,
Order, please.
Mr Mayor, we're trying to get the map through to Elaine because obviously her system is not directly linked to the map, so it is not a case of not knowing where Glendowie is. It is actually a fact of just the system, so have you got it now, Elaine?
It's on its way.
I got a hard copy. If you want one.
Okay,
It's
we'll
coming.
come back to Glendowie.
It's been emailed.
It's been emailed.
Mr Chair, can I ask a second question?
Yeah, just no more speeches. Just ask them a question. We'll have the speeches
Oh, right.
later.
Thank you. So, thank you, sir. I know I've been speaking all day, unlike yourself.
Yep.
Protect.
Well, they're
If
easily
we're
done first.
And it's only a question time now.
Yeah,
Question.
Come on.
If we're so, Penny, if we're so interested, and I respect this, if we're so interested in protecting the professional integrity of our experts through this IHP process, why didn't we give them some thick glass to stand on? Why didn't we give them a majority of this council table to sign off the out-of-scope changes affecting 29,500 properties? Why did we shove it through? Was that decision made by management to put it through a committee of the minority in a cloak and dagger approach? If we really want to protect them, we would have given it to the majority.
Yeah, look, it's been the same approach as we have used for all of them.
Well,
Come on, just a modicum of respect for these guys. Give it a break.
well, Mr.
Right,
Chair,
can I have just a minute, please? Can I have an answer? Because in amongst that was a reasonable question, and that is, so explain the viewpoint from a planning view as to the reasons why we see blue there.
Am I responding to the second question? Or
Yes, yes, I think you can ignore the first one.
So the second question to do with the maps or to do with the unitary plan committee? Which one?
the decision being
Okay,
made by
okay, yeah. Second question was more about the politics. First question, wait.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Just wait. Go.
Of course it was.
Okay. So there's a range of reasons why there are recommended out-of-scope changes in the eastern suburbs, and one of them is around the issue to do with historic character and special character, and I think as has been expressed by one of the people who talked earlier today, the work of the heritage team and the guidance from the heritage from the independent hearings panel questioned what was in the legacy plans around special character zoning in parts of the eastern suburbs, and that special character zoning has been reduced in some areas. As part of the process of doing that, the direction of the Auckland Development Committee, because they were the ones that dealt with the heritage issues, was that we needed to review the underlying zoning, because pre-1944 had a lower level of zoning, and special character did too. So part of the changes here are because of the directions that came out of the hearings on the special character. Another reason for this is to do with what John talked about, which was actually reflecting the legacy plan issues. So in many parts of the eastern suburbs you have a range of residential 5, which is a 2-storey zone, and residential 6A and 6B. 6A having a height limit of 8 metres, and under the legacy plan it does not restrict you to 2 storeys and 8 metres. In fact, because of the way the Isthmus District Plan measures height, which is from an average ground level on a section, you will find all through the eastern suburbs townhouses and developments that have 2, 2.5, 3 storeys. So it's not a height issue in terms of taking the legacy plan and translating it into more mixed housing suburban and mixed housing urban. And as I think you've commented, and as what can be seen on the maps, is that some of these areas are also on main arterial roads, which may not...